think entrepreneurs find themselves, especially in the beginning, and myself included, in a phase where we get very lopsided,
Yep.
right? We typically are focusing on that growth,
Yep.
and tend to neglect, the other important things.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. I'm your host, as always, Yona Weiss. Grateful to be here on another awesome day and another awesome guest. We got Cale Delaney all the way out from, I don't even know where you are, but where are you?
South Florida.
South Florida. I mean, your picture on social media is like a sunny beach, so I figured somewhere on a beach somewhere, maybe Florida, but that's awesome. Welcome to the show, Cale. How you doing?
Thank you, Jonah. I'm doing well, and it is nice and sunny here, so it's a good day, good weather.
Good time to be in South Florida, that's for sure. This time of year. That's awesome. Now, you are a short-term rental investor. We've
Yeah.
had many short-term rentals investors on the show. You're also the host of a podcast called The Fit Investor, FIT. So I know you guys talk about how to be fit, and that's kind of your slogan, financially, physically, and faithfully. And I love that because there's so much to make up a person, and these are some of the most important qualities that a person can have. Make sure that they're physically fit, financially fit, obviously takes care of so many other aspects of their life. But faith is something that doesn't get talked about a lot, at least in the real estate world. And I love that you and your co-host Brenna, who we coincidentally just had on the show recently, talk
Yep.
about. So I'd love to kind of dive into that. What's the kind of the impetus behind that? And maybe before that, just give our listeners a little background. How did you get into real estate? How did you get into short-term rentals?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you. So I guess how did I get into short-term rentals? We want to start there. I followed the typical path like most people do, not really knowing there was another way. So, went to college for engineering, decided during school that I didn't want to do it for a career,
Mm-hmm.
and straight out of school ended up getting into real estate, just not doing much with it. I actually sold commercial property right out of college down in South Florida, and it was a great experience. I say great experience, terrible timing. It was 2006 to 2008. So pretty much the worst possible timing you could pick. And again, being young, I didn't leverage that for what I could have. I learned, but I was just not in the right mindset to really understand the concepts of investing and think about investing, frankly, for myself. So in 2008, I left that and got into construction management, which was just really kind of just the next logical career path outside of engineering. That was, somewhat what I went to school for. And so I ended up sticking in that career for 15 years, working for a large contractor across the country. And it was just one of those things that, again, I thought that's what you're supposed to do. You work until you retire, and there you go. And it wasn't until 2019, when the birth of my youngest son, who's 4 years old now, that it really started getting me thinking that something needed to change. I would look at my peers who were at that retirement age or close to it and see how their lives were, and from all different aspects, how they were physically, how they were mentally, and it was very unappealing. Let's put it that way. I was like, man, I really don't want that to be that in 20, 30 years. And I can't see myself doing this job for that much longer. I want to be able to spend time with my son, all that stuff. And so I just had that bit of a crisis, I guess, internally of, I need to find a way out. Like, I need to find something. And, this coincided shortly thereafter with COVID, which, was a big turning point for a lot of people as well.
Right.
And so I kind of just fell back on real estate as, okay, let's look into that. Maybe that's a vehicle that can get me there, and dove into the podcast, the books, all that good stuff. Started out in small multifamily. That's what I thought it was going to be. So my first investment purchase was actually a small multifamily property in my local market. Quickly saw that wasn't going to get me where I wanted financially in the time frame that I had set. And so just started scouring the earth for what other assets in real estate can
Right.
get me a return. And after a bit of shiny object syndrome, I came across short-term rentals on a podcast, and the market that I invest in. Long story short, took a quick trip up there, sold myself on the market, the idea, and 3 or 4 weeks later, we're under contract on the first one, and then
Wow.
just really went all in. So over a period of around 18 months or just under 2 years, we ended up going from zero to, I think at that point, like nine short-term rental properties in the Smokies, and then, expanding from there. So
That's
allowed me to
amazing.
achieve the goal, quit the job, and focus on the real estate full time now.
That's
Um,
amazing. I'm sure
yeah,
the construction management part of it has helped because obviously there's so much in common in any aspect of real estate, but especially when you're dealing with, short-term rentals, there's oftentimes a lot of setup process. There's a lot of, things that, especially if you're, buying non-turnkey properties, you want to make sure that it's, up and ready to go as soon as possible with the attention to detail that oftentimes gets overlooked with someone who doesn't have that background.
right. Yeah, just the project management skills overall. I mean, that type of skill set transcends really to any, any type of industry. So yeah, certainly was a great job. It helped me, develop those skill sets. It was just, again, it was kind of that thing where I wasn't satisfied with it, and I felt I needed to change and find
Sure.
a way to be free from it. And
Now,
thankfully it provided
I
that.
yeah, I wanna I mean, I've heard this a lot from a lot of other people, and, you say it kind of so almost nonchalantly, "Yeah, you invest in real estate, got some short-term rentals, and then you're able to retire essentially from your full-time W-2 job." I mean, is it that real? I mean, people are yourself obviously, you're doing it, so you're able
Mhm.
to have enough income, enough cash flow, I guess, to be able to leave your job? I mean, are you making more money than you were before? I don't know if you wanna get into that, but, I mean, we're talking about being fit physically and financially. What is that like?
Yeah, I'm making more than I was. And I mean, frankly, I had replaced, a six-figure income within his 6 to 9 months of
Wow.
getting started. Now, again, I say that, but I wouldn't say that's a typical case. I mean, I really dove all in and
Mhm.
went speed ahead. Thankfully I was fiscally responsible and frugal for all those 15 years that I was working, and, had saved up some money and had a little bit of money in the 401k and that type of stuff. And, a HELOC on my primary home. And so I used all these different avenues. And so once I got started and said, okay, I can see that this can work, I really just pulled the trigger and, went really, really fast, and was able to get that kind of snowball effect to kick in, pretty quick
Right.
once you get the first few properties under the belt, and, continue to accelerate the expansion at that point. So it certainly is possible. It depends on the individual, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I wouldn't necessarily recommend going as fast as I did. I mean, it certainly was not easy.
Right.
I was still working, I still stayed on that job for 2 years after I had started the investing journey. So I was doing that at the same time, and I have a family with kids, and
Right.
so yeah, not easy.
Yeah.
And so, if somebody has a longer time frame, evaluate your own goals and your own priorities. But it worked for me. It got me there quicker than I had expected, and it's certainly still possible today. I think in today's market, I think it does take a little bit more
Mhm.
patience to do things properly. And I
Right.
would say that's probably the biggest caution, whether it was during COVID time when I was going, where the market was on fire, or now where there's, this kind of sentiment of uncertainty
Right.
and higher rates. At any point in time, I think you just got to be smart. Right. And I always tell everybody, be conservative. I mean, it can be that simple. Like, be conservative in your underwriting, become an expert in that market that you're looking at, and be solid with your numbers. And meaning, don't stretch them. Don't get caught up in the, bidding wars. Don't get caught up in the FOMO.
Yeah.
Uh, if you have a set number that is where it's going to work for you, don't go beyond it. Right. If that means you
Yeah,
pass the deal, you pass up the deal.
for sure. And I think an important point you made is, I mean, it took you a couple years of, from starting investing, getting the properties set up, getting the business model set up, making money
Right.
from it until you actually left your job. Meaning you didn't jump all in from the very beginning. I mean, there was a certain point where you're like, okay, this is feasible now at this point. We can make it manage. And I think that's smart. Obviously, in terms of the lending side as well, I'm sure it was easier to get financing when you still had a W-2. But these are important things. If anyone's listening to this and thinking, hey, I want to, jump all in, listen, it's possible you can jump all in, but have a good runway is obviously the safer path. So tell me about this fit investor. I mean, I think it's a fascinating concept. Obviously, podcasts are a lot of fun. I love doing them. I love guesting on them. I love hosting them. But having really a topic or a kind of platform where you can discuss something specific it's much more intriguing in a lot of ways than just have something random, just talking about something general. Okay, we're a real estate podcast and we talk about everything. You really have it kind of laid out there. So how did you come up with this concept of being, fit financially, physically, faithfully, specifically?
Right. Yeah. When I got started in the real estate investing and kind of getting more plugged in the community, whether it's online or locally, which I'm sure everybody said it before, but that's just another big tidbit of networking, right? I mean, getting plugged in as much as you possibly can. But one of the things that really drew me further into the real estate investing community was that, it's such an abundance mindset and giving community, which is unlike any other industry that I've found. Meaning, it's typically not dog eat dog. It's typically people looking to help each other out, from somebody who's super successful, willing to help the complete newbie. There's just that, again, that kind of abundance mindset, which I found really appealing. And as I started just, again, getting more and more connected, starting to get to know people, I found that there was a, not outspoken, but that there was a Christian community within the investor circles that I was in, but it wasn't something that was outspoken. And so it had been kind of on my mind and on my heart for a while of, there really should be, I don't know, there should be a platform where people can talk about it. And I didn't really do anything with it. And then, I had the opportunity in last year to be in the Hospitable Host book. And I took that opportunity to, be open and honest about my faith in the chapter that I contributed without really expecting anything. I was just, I got to give credit where credit's due and let's be open and honest about it. So I did. And at the book launch event, a couple of the other contributing authors had come up to me and just said, "Hey, thank you for doing that. Like, we know there's people out there, but they're not outspoken. So I just wanted to say thank you." And I was like, "Oh, wow. Okay. That's nice." I really wasn't expecting that. And so that was kind of like the kick in the butt of, you know what, maybe there is a demand or really a need for having that platform for successful entrepreneurs, not just necessarily real estate investors, but successful entrepreneurs to have a platform where they can speak about their faith, openly. And so that was really the impetus behind it. And then, the fitness, the physical fitness part, I threw that in there because, I'm big into physical fitness. I've been into it since I was, very young, and it's been a critical part of my life in lots of different aspects. And so I wanted to kind of put all that together and focus on somewhat of a holistic sense instead of just, another business podcast or another real estate podcast. Let's try to focus on being a little bit more holistic.
Yeah.
Uh, because I think entrepreneurs find themselves, especially in the beginning, and myself included, in a phase where we get very lopsided,
Yep.
right? We typically are focusing on that growth,
Yep.
and tend to neglect, the other important things. And so, yeah, we wanted to bring it together, open that platform to speak openly about our faith and, encourage entrepreneurs to, try to strive for that balance.
And one thing you said there about being, right at the beginning about the real estate world being people who are more giving, more kind of abundance mindset oriented, it does make a huge difference when you're
Mm,
in that world, when you're not like just trying to fight dog eat dog, trying to get by. And then when you bring it home and realize what the important things to focus on. And I think when you have that foundation of faith and you have that foundation of realizing what's really going on behind the scenes and how's, God really making everything possible and bring people together, the networking, I mean, I find it just incredible every single day. I'm blown away by the incredible, divine providence, really, of just meeting people, connecting with people, and how bringing people from all corners of the world and all walks of life all together for, seemingly random purposes, but there's always a plan there. And I think when you realize that, you focus on that, it can take your business really to the next level because you realize there's purpose behind this. It's not just, yeah, everyone needs to make money. Everyone needs to, be physically, financially successful. But what is it all about? I mean, is it in the end of the day is about making money? No. So you have to figure out what's it about? What am I doing here? And I think when people have that in mind, they can go very far
right.
and they can take it to a whole new level.
Yeah, 100%. And you're absolutely right
Mm.
because especially in the beginning, like as we're saying, we get lopsided with focusing on the growth. Oftentimes we get into the business aspect of it too because we're focusing on the money, right? That's what we want to get. That's why we're starting that business or whatnot. But I think we quickly find out if we really, look at ourselves that it's just like everybody says, it's not fulfilling. I mean, it becomes a constant wanting of more. And, when do you stop? When is enough enough? Right. And those are just the constant cycle that you get in if you don't have a purpose, like you mentioned, a reason that you're doing it. And so taking a step back and kind of having some introspection and praying about it as to, what really is the purpose for doing this? What good can I do from this? Not just hoarding wealth or money or possessions for myself. What can we actually do with this? And then, just like you said, that's when I think things can really take off and really expand and really be fruitful and fulfilling.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're obviously living the dream. I think if you were to look at your life now versus 5, 10 years ago in terms of, what you're doing, I'm sure you enjoyed it. I'm sure were good at what you did. But now, I mean, you own, I don't even know how many, but probably over a dozen, rentals.
Mhm.
How many is it now?
15.
15 rental. I mean, it's when you think about it, I mean, and each one is, cash flowing. These are high end short-term rentals. We're not talking about just like dinky, single family rentals where, yeah, you can collect a rent check at the end of the month. These are really like each one on its own is a cash flowing business that,
Right.
produces, a good amount. And what would you, I mean, if you were to look back like 10 years ago, would you ever imagine that this was even possible?
No, not at all. And I mean, in that chapter, just referencing back to that again, I started it off by calling myself like the accidental entrepreneur because never in my life did I think I would be an entrepreneur. I mean, I was the kind of person who flocked to safety, resist change, you stick with the situation, good or bad, right? And that's what I did. And that's why I stuck in a job that I didn't have a passion for so long. And it wasn't until I had that kind of breaking point that, really put me over the edge. But yeah, I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. I mean, having a business, investing in real estate and all this stuff, not in a million years. And it's kind of something that I'm passionate about now
Mhm.
because I wish I had really known this stuff. I think probably everybody could say, I wish I had known this stuff a long time ago. Right. And so, kind of tying it in with what you were talking about with purpose, one of the things that I'm working on now is actually just last night, I finished the first official course of what I call the Cash Academy, Creating Assets and Strategic Habits, which is a financial education course for high school students.
Wow.
And so we did our first, it was a 5-week course with my high school youth group at church and teaching them about how money works, how the banking system works, real money versus fake money, talking about investing, talking about
Mhm.
entrepreneurial or entrepreneurism. And, they're going to be working on their business plan to present next week, which is going to be the capstone project for them to present the business plan. So that honestly has been one of the most enjoyable things that I've done in a long time. It's been really exciting seeing the light bulbs go off in their heads,
Yeah.
seeing them like, man, why am I not being taught this stuff? Like,
Mm.
it doesn't make any sense. Why am I not being taught this stuff? Like,
Right.
these are the real questions. And, whether they do anything with it or not at that age, because I know at that age, I mean, shoot, I was at that age too, right? But, at least planting the seeds and who knows, maybe it'll come to fruition years later. Maybe something will happen from it. So that's been exciting and been fulfilling.
That's awesome. And that is so, so needed. And kudos to you for putting something like that together because I mean, and that's something you can really spread far and wide. Obviously, there's a huge, huge need for that. Like you said, the kids themselves are saying, how come no one's talking this? No one talks about it, in any school, anywhere, pretty
Right.
much. I mean, yes, there are exceptions. I was a guest on a podcast, a group out of Dallas, Texas, where this woman started a real estate like elective. I think it was like elective in the high school
That's
she
awesome.
was teaching. She herself was a real estate investor, and they turned it into first of all, they turned it into a podcast, which I thought was, like, really cool, where the girls actually got on with myself and, the other teacher and
Nice.
interviewed me, basically. So that was a lot of fun. But they literally, similar to what you're saying, taught them how to invest in real estate, taught them about money, and several of them actually went on to one of them in the middle of the school year actually bought a property, So
Oh, no.
that was like, very impressive, but I think I mean, I don't know if you are, but I think you probably are underestimating the impact that you're having on these kids. many of them, I'm sure, later on in life at some point will be like what Kale, did for us at that point and teaching us those things, allowing us to explore these options of entrepreneurship. Someone 5, 10 years down the line is going to look back and say, that was a turning point in my life. And I think what you're saying is absolutely true. That's the most fulfilling thing that you can make an impact on someone else's life.
Yeah, yeah, so I can only hope that, it's up to God, and, one of the things that similarly with the Fit Investor, one of the things I wanted to make sure with this as well was that we tied in the faith with that as well. So, part of the coursework as well is going over, from the scripture, what is God's view on money and wealth, and talking about that and making sure that they all understand, and I left them kind of with that last night as well, was that, look, everything we've learned about how to make money, how to build wealth, frankly, does not matter. And I do not encourage you guys to do anything with it unless you have the mindset right. Unless you have the mindset that, if you do become wealthy, that you're going to use it according to God's will and you're going to be a good steward of it, then awesome. But if not,
Yeah.
then search yourself before you get started, because money exaggerates your internal character. All right. If you are a greedy person, money will make you more greedy.
Yep.
If you're a generous person, money will make you more generous. So that's what I told him. I was like, search yourself first before you do anything.
Yep.
And, if you see that there are some things you need to work on, then work on that before anything else.
100%. That's such a powerful message and it's so true. You see it
Yeah.
time and time again. And it's not that, you can't change that. I mean, yes,
Right.
everyone is born with innate qualities, but our job in this world is to really overcome those and become a better person. And
Mhm.
so if you find yourself being a more stingy, well, action can change that. And a very famous quote from Maimonides, who was, a 12th century Jewish rabbi, philosopher, physician, very, very, epic author. And one of the things that he said, a question was posed: if a person has, 1,000 coins, $1,000, let's just keep it simple, but for our
Mhm.
terms, should he give all of it to one person and make a big impact, or should he spread it out and give, one to 1,000 different people? And he said, yes, I mean, obviously the impact you can have on giving, $1,000 to one person can be huge, right?
Mhm.
But the act of giving 1,000 times will change you as a
Huh.
person. And that's more powerful.
That's interesting. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Well, Kale, I want to transition now to what we call the final four. These are four questions I love to ask all my guests. First one is, what's the worst job that you ever had?
Well, I don't know if you consider an official job, but I mean, growing up, I did not grow up with money. So we did not have a lot of stuff. And so even young elementary school age, I was doing whatever I could to earn a couple bucks. And so I would say the worst thing I've ever done was picking up cigarette butts from a parking lot for about a quarter for the day. I did that for several times. Next to that, I would say an actual official job was being a cashier at Kmart, which I don't think Kmart exists anymore, but whatever,
Yeah,
department.
absolutely. Yeah. Listen, picking up cigarette butts from a parking lot, it does not sound so enticing, but no, I mean that's horrible. But wow, definitely learned something from that, I'm sure. Second question, what's a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
Sure. Of course, besides the Bible, really, all right, besides the common ones. So besides the Bible and Rich Dad Poor Dad, I would say The Creature from Jekyll Island, which, that is, man, reading that book was like kind of waking up from the Matrix, compare it to that movie. But that's a whole book about the creation of the Federal Reserve and the central banking system, how it works, what its intentions are. And it's a fantastic book. Read it several times. But that really opened my eyes up to understanding money, how it works, how the world works, and just really opened my eyes to a lot of things.
Yeah, we actually had that book mentioned on this podcast one time previously by Amy Silvis. Shout out to Amy, who is she's an incredible person, by the way. But that book, I was fascinated by. When
Yeah.
she mentioned that, she like, okay, now I need to check it out. And I have people mention book every single week on the podcast, so I have a huge list. But that one, just for whatever reason, I just took a deep dive into that. So I was like, wow, and it literally, like you said, paradigm shift changing?
Right.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Love it.
Third question is, what's a skill or talent that you would like to learn? And this could be anything.
Yeah. Honestly, something that's just kind of on my mind lately is swimming. As silly as that sounds. I'm not a good swimmer, and with my kids,
Hmm.
kind of taught them to swim the best I can, and, they can hold their own in the water for now, but, I would like them and myself to become proficient swimmers. I think not only for safety purposes, but I mean, I think it's an excellent source of exercise and just an excellent ability to have.
Sure, absolutely. And living in South Florida comes in handy.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, right now I sink like a rock. So, I mean, I need help.
Well, good for you. I hope you take that up, and that sounds like a fun, family focused activity. But now that you're retired,
Right.
you can basically do whatever you want, right?
Right.
Awesome. Fourth and final question: what does success mean to you?
Yeah. That's the tough one. Right. And I think it's ever evolving. When I started out on this entrepreneurial journey, success was, replacing my income and being able to leave the job. Right.
Hmm.
Which happened, thankfully. Now at this point, it is like we were talking about earlier, finding what really is God's purpose for my
Hmm.
life at this point, right? How is he going to use, this new endeavor and, whatever platform that he provides me with to, proclaim and bring glory to his name. Right. And so that would be success, and feeling confident and having clarity on what that purpose is, and living it out.
Yeah, love that. That is spot on. And I love the fact that it changes. It does for everyone. It changes over time. It evolves. What your goals are right now, may not be the same goals you have in a year or 5 years from now. So keep evolving them, because you know what? Yes, providing that right now is going to be a huge step. But in a year or 5 years from now, it may change again. And so
Well,
the goalposts move further and further away, and that's great. That's part of the journey and the experience of life. And God is infinite, so there's infinite possibilities. So we just
yeah.
gotta be open to
Yeah.
taking them. Finally, Kale, where can our listeners find you or reach out to you if they want to?
Sure. Well, yeah, first and foremost, be sure to check out the Fit Investor podcast. It's on all the major podcast platforms, YouTube as well. We also have a corresponding Facebook group, the Fit Investor. Other than that, yeah, you can find me personally on Facebook, just Cale Delaney, Instagram, Cale_Delaney. And those are really the best spots to reach out.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to put all that in the show notes. And grateful to you for joining me today. This was a fun conversation and really appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. And to our listeners, thank you all for joining once again, all the way to the end. And remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn, send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.